Hey guys, welcome back to the Fergie Time podcast. Today we'll be ranking every current player at Manchester United. For our first player, we have none other than Wan-Bissaka, who has had an excellent transition to Manchester United since joining them this summer. Wan-Bissaka, a player who has locked down wingers defensively and has done a very good job of contributing to United's solid defensive season. That said, he has been criticized for not being able to go forward effectively at times and struggling in crossing the ball into the box. Also, let me note, very young player, so let's consider how well he's done for his young age. I'm going to put him in very good. Not on the level of players like Trent Alexander-Arnold in that world-class category, but definitely above your average solid Premier League player. Next up, we have Angel Gomes, an attacking midfielder from London, and who has played very well with United's Premier League 2 team, that's in Division 2 as well. He's played very well with them, scoring 4 goals and I think having roughly 2 assists in 5 matches, but has been unable to break into United's first team consistently. And so because of that, he has immense talent and is actually looking maybe to exit United to Chelsea. He's a very talented player, but has not shown the consistency to join that first team on the regular basis. So because of that, I'm going to put him inconsistent. He has shown some very good moments, but has yet to show that he is going to be a first team player that can contribute week in and week out as of this age. Let's remember, he is 19, so with younger players, inconsistency also lies. So Angel Gomes, I'm going to put inconsistent. Our next player is Axel Tuanzebe, and he is a very young, very talented defender for Manchester United, but because of some of the players that are in front of him, the likes of Harry Maguire, someone who's going to be very high on this list, also Wan-Bissaka, another very high-rated player, he's not been able to break into the side, and he's made appearances, 5 appearances in the Premier League, 3 in the Europa League, but has failed to get the attention of manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer consistently. And he is very young, let's note that, so I don't think he is a bust yet. But I'm going to throw him in inconsistent for now because we just haven't seen enough to let the verdict be out on him. This selection is going to be very hard. We have Marcus Rashford, who has had an absolutely sensational season before getting injured. In 22 matches, 14 goals, 4 assists, was really the only bright spot in the United side that was super inconsistent in the beginning of the season. I mean, he was the driving force of that side. But do we put him with the world-class players? Like, in my mind, world-class strikers in the Premier League, the likes of Harry Kane, the Sergio Agueros of the world. Is he on that level yet? And unfortunately, I'm going to say he's not quite there. Part of it is age, and I think he's a little one-dimensional at times. So I'm going to place him in very good right now alongside Wan-Bissaka. And in a season or so, no question in my mind, he will be considered a world-class player. This is another tough decision. David De Gea, a player who has been considered one of the best goalkeepers for maybe 4 or 5 years at this point, but in recent seasons has come across some inconsistencies. That said, I still think he is one of the best keepers in the world, and because of his past resume, I believe that will definitely have me place him in world class. He's been very solid this year, a couple mishaps here and there, but has been able to bounce back really well and lead this United side, making big saves time and time again. So David De Gea is going to go into world class for me. Harry Maguire is a player that is criticized heavily for his high transfer fee, but a player, in my opinion, who is so important to Manchester United because he is the key in that back line. He holds it all together, and people have been very critical of him, but I'll tell you what, England without Harry Maguire would struggle, United without Harry Maguire would struggle, and in my opinion in the Premier League is the third best center back after Virgil van Dijk and Laporte. So I'm going to put Harry Maguire in world class as well. I think he really has shown that consistency and has led this team to maybe get them into position to qualify for the Champions League next year. Next up, we have Sergio Romero, a player who whenever called on has done exactly what we've needed him to do. He's the best backup goalkeeper, in my opinion, in the Premier League. So I'm going to put him in solid because although he is not a starter and is currently under the shadow of David De Gea, is a very solid backup, and whenever called upon, he never looks shaky. A lot of backup keepers, we've seen players like Adrian and others come in and just absolutely bottle it, look a bit nervous. Romero is always up for the challenge, and has shown time and time again why he is, in my opinion, the best backup in the Premier League. So he goes in solid. Odion Ighalo, this is another interesting one. Just joined United recently, and has actually played pretty well compared to what people expected from him. He scored 2 goals in the 3 matches in the Europa League, hasn't scored yet in the Premier League, but has shown some very good spurts and some very good indications to where he will play the rest of the season. And I think he's been able to be creative, he's been able to create chances and done a pretty good job filling in for a United team that has struggled with injuries this season. So I'm going to throw him in to solid. Hasn't blown us away, but has done what he's expected to do and is getting the job done, scoring in the Europa League, taking some of the pressure off players like Anthony Martial so they don't have to play as many minutes. Next on this list is Andreas Pereira, a player that I am going to be honest, I am not a very big fan of. He is pretty selfish on the ball. He's looking to create off the dribble a lot, and I think he often gets stuck with his head down, not able to make great passes, oftentimes taking wild shots from areas in the field that you know he will not score from. And he's not that young anymore. He's roughly 24 years old. I don't think he adds much value to this United side. I genuinely do believe they are better when he is not on the pitch, especially since Bruno has come back. I think a move for him to leave the club at this point would be good, considering it's been a season or two since he's really gotten a decent look at, always gotten a good look at him, and I just don't believe he's working for this United side well, and I don't believe he's a United quality player as of right now. So I'm going to put him in not for me. I think he is better than some of these players in inconsistent and not for me, but I just don't think he's a good fit, and I don't think he's played well at United. Mason Greenwood, 18 years old, only 2 weeks older than I am, which is very impressive considering where he is in his career at this point. Mason Greenwood, I'm going to throw him in solid, but listen to me. He is 18 years old, so he has actually been fantastic in the Europa League. 5 goals in 7 matches, an absolute fantastic scoring rate. In the Premier League, has not had that same contribution, but still 5 goals in 22 matches. For my 18-year-old, is fantastic. I believe one day he will be in the world-class category, but as of right now, he's not getting the kind of appearances you need to be higher up on this list. We haven't seen that consistency at the highest level, like in the Premier League, week in and week out. So I'm going to throw him in with solid. Every time he's called upon, he gets the job done, if not exceeds expectations. I think next year or the year after, he'll be pushing into the very good category, and 3 or 4 years down the road, will be in world-class. But as of right now, Mason Greenwood, solid. This is a tough one. Bruno Fernandes has absolutely come in and changed life at Manchester United. 2 goals, 3 assists in 5 Premier League matches. Just has an impact and an energy around him that's kind of bringing the fans along and bringing the other players around him. It's his creativity. I don't know if you guys saw in the match where he chipped the ball over the wall to Martial, I believe, who ran onto it and scored. It's that kind of creativity and thinking outside the box, the way he creates more chances than any other United player, that makes him so special. And these aren't just long shots from outside the area. These are very good opportunities, and it's a level of creativity and a special player that we haven't seen at Manchester United in a while. So I'm going to throw Bruno Fernandes into world class, even though it has only been a short period of time. The impact he's had in such a small period of time and the way he's adapted in the Premier League is special. So Bruno Fernandes, world class. Brandon Williams, a 19-year-old fullback at Manchester United, has looked electric this season. Very young player, not getting a ton of appearances, but when he's played in the Premier League has really impressed because he's able to get up and down the pitch like very few players can do. And his pace is electric. He's getting into good spots going forward, gets back and defends well, very vicious, and someone who I think will grow into more performances or more appearances as he ages. I'm going to put him in solid now. I've been very impressed with every performance he's had in the Premier League. They haven't been throwaways. They've stuck with me and they stand out to me. So Williams goes into solid. This is a interesting one. We have Fred, a player who's gone from being slated for months at the beginning of the season to a player now many Manchester United fans are like, whoa, where did this come from? And it's he's adapted to the Premier League finally, and it's great to see. He's a very solid defensive midfielder. He gets around the pitch, good distributor of the ball, clearly has fantastic technical ability, a nice left foot, can spray the ball across the field. It's important for Fred, though, to be paired with a strong tackling defensive midfielder, though. That is important to note. So him and McTominay work very well because McTominay gets done with a lot of the dirty work and Fred does a lot of the distribution. And I think Fred's recent form warrants a solid ranking on this one. I think he's been very good recently, but let's see if he can keep this form up for several months to come, and let's see with maybe players like McTominay being injured or how that pairing works, if it continues to work. But I think Fred is only going up from here. I mean, this one's just a stinker. Phil Jones, right? I have to say, I do respect Phil Jones, his hustle, his grind at Manchester United, a player who theoretically could get a testimonial, but it said he would not do it because no one would show. Phil Jones, I think he's a good professional footballer, but I've never loved him. He makes very rash decisions as a center back, just doesn't seem to think always. And I'm gonna have to put him in not for me. I've just never been a big fan of him. I do respect the hustle, but I don't know if he's a United quality player, especially now. Victor Lindelöf, a player who has really come into his own. That said, I do believe that he benefits greatly from playing next to a player like Harry Maguire. Has been good this year, solid performances, he goes into solid for me. Hasn't blown me away, but has got the job done and has done it very well. Jesse Lingard, I think we all know where this is going. He's going into not for me. Jesse Lingard, a player who constantly gets made fun of for his seemingly lack of development, lack of focus on the pitch. I think Lingard would benefit from a move to another club, and I think it's time for him to part ways from United this summer, so I'm going to put Lingard in not for me. This one is tough. Anthony Martial. So, a player who has been very good this year, but I just don't know if he's consistent enough to put him in that category. He has 11 goals, 3 assists in 23 matches. It's a hard one for me. I'm gonna lean to looking at the players that are currently in solid. I'm gonna put him in very good. This could be a little premature, but with Rashford going out, he has carried a large chunk of the load, has impressed, also scoring a bunch of goals in the Europa League. I think a very good ranking is warranted. Juan Mata, a very skilled footballer, but has not found his best form at Manchester United. I'm gonna have to put him in inconsistent. Hasn't gotten a ton of appearances this year. Oftentimes just looks outmatched for pace and speed. He's not in a system at United that really works well for him. And although we see some little slight showings of pure quality, pure class, I don't think he's in solid just because he's not even consistently picked for the United side, so he goes into inconsistent. Nemanja Matić, a very, very interesting one. Once considered one of the best defensive mids in the Premier League, his legs have gone. I'm gonna throw him in, not for me. He's 31 years of age, and I think he's only gonna get worse from here. Often looks slow and outmatched on the pitch, and like I said with Mata, who shows brief glimpses of sensational football, I've not really seen that from Matić this year. He's good at moving and pivoting the ball, and he uses his strength to hold players up and defend well, but really has been a bit slow at times and looks not up to the speed of play in the Premier League. Scott McTominay, a good young player, a very solid defensive mid, or you could call him an 8 as well, box-to-box player, gets up and down the pitch, uses his physicality, has a bit of skill, can pull it out of his back pocket when he needs to, as we've seen with some fantastic goals from long range. I'm going to throw McTominay into solid, very good young player, and I think if development goes right with Ole and United, I think could be in the very good category in years to come, but for right now, has had a very solid season, barring a few injuries. The big one for the video, Paul Pogba. Where do I put him? I mean, he hasn't played in months. Inconsistent. Said he wanted to leave United at some points. Where do I put him? But then before he came, world-class player. You know what? He's going to go in world-class. And I know many United fans will be unhappy about this. But let's remember how much Paul Pogba affects winning at Man United. Before we had Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba was the focal point of this United side. And even at the beginning of the season, without him, they struggled to perform. If you look at the statistics, when Paul Pogba is on the pitch, United are this much better. So I'm going to throw him in world class. But if he doesn't perform when he gets back from injury, I mean, we're talking he can move down to very good. And that's maybe why we haven't seen him transfer as of yet, because his value has dropped. And maybe United don't want to take that cut. Marcus Rojo, a player who's been at the club for quite a while now. I'm going to throw him in not for me. Makes often rash decisions. Hasn't really performed with any sort of consistency. And I think a player that needs to move on for the club. Another player who I don't think quite has that quality. Tahith Chong, a very skilled winger. Has made some appearances in the Europa League and in the Premier League. Only 20 years of age. I'm going to throw him in inconsistent. Have we seen enough from him at the Premier League level? No. You can't say he's in the solid, but I don't think he's someone for me that I want to see move on from the club as of yet. We need to see more from him, and from his highlights and some of the skills we have seen, has lots of promise, but give him a few years of development and let's check on where he is then. Will he be breaking into the United side later? I believe so. Timothy Fosu-Mensah, 22-year-old, center back, right back, and plays a bit of defensive mid as well. Currently on loan at Fulham after not getting a ton of appearances with United's Premier League 2 team. And he's only played 12 matches with Fulham as well. I think that's a sign that maybe he's not quite on that level. He's a little older than some of the other younger players. He is 22, still young, still could develop. But I'm going to put him in not for me. I think maybe give him some more loan spells, but I'm not sure if he will ever really be that impactful in this United side. This is an interesting one. We have Luke Shaw, a player who I was very critical for his fitness, because as a left back would struggle and would often at times look tired getting up and down the pitch, which obviously no easy feat, but when you're a professional footballer, your expectation is to be able to get up and down. However, when they moved to 3 in the back and he became a center back, has looked very good. Clearly a very skilled player, but has just struggled with fitness through and through again. So because of some of this inconsistency, but also very good form as of recent, I think it's fair to put him in between the two in solid. Next, Diogo Dalot, a player who I think is personally very good from what I've seen, but haven't seen enough of him to really make a judgment. He's made a couple appearances in the Premier League, a couple appearances in the Europa League, and has looked sound. But have we seen enough from him? No. I think in the future he could be in that solid category. I think he could be a very good right back for United. But with Wan-Bissaka now there, it doesn't really make sense. I'm going to put him in inconsistent because we haven't seen enough from him. But realistically, I don't think he will ever play a ton at Manchester United just because it wouldn't make sense. Him and Wan-Bissaka, about the same age, play the same position. It doesn't really work. But I do like him as a player, so I'm going to put him in inconsistent. Daniel James, a player. For our final player on the list, we have Daniel James, a player who has come in and made a relatively big impact for a player who only came in for roughly £20 million this summer, who had low expectations, a young player, has 3 goals, 6 assists in the Premier League, has looked very dangerous, yet one-dimensional, and I'm going to throw him in solid. He's done a good job. He's done better than we expected, has had a relatively large impact, but then also hasn't blown our expectations totally out of the water. He hasn't looked like a player who will ever be on that world-class level. Could be very good, but that's only if he develops more than just a player with blistering pace, because his finishing looks a bit rough. He's rough around the edges in terms of end product, doesn't always get good chances on goal or make good decisions, so I'm going to throw him in solid. This is my Manchester United tier list. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of my tier list, also where you would rank these players. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you, and stay safe, everyone.